Sure.
Well, good evening. Excuse me. Here we go. Bad start. Good evening, everybody. I'm Bob ODeKirk. My voice is going a little bit, so hopefully it holds up for tonight. And that's Missey Schumacher. I guess we'll give you a brief rundown of municipal government, how it works, and I guess what the purpose of it is. And then I'd be happy to field questions, especially. It may help with the speech a little bit. But basically, if you think about why is there city government, there's three or four main components of city government. We provide police protection, we provide fire protection and ambulance service, we handle the streets, and we handle water, clean water. So those are the four core functions of city government. Obviously, especially in a city like Joliet, there's a lot of other things that government ends up doing. It becomes a real tug of war between the four main things that city governments are supposed to be there to provide for and all the other things that it's easy to fall, I think, into the trap that other things that you want to do with taxpayers' dollars. So again, if you think about the four components, police department, fire department, street department, they maintain the streets, they do a lot of the public works around town, they will do snow removal, which is a huge deal. I think we probably get more complaints about snow removal than any other single item. And then the water department, the city of Joliet has a water plant, we have a treatment plant. Actually, there's probably a lot to talk about with the water in Joliet because it's been a major issue. But the way that people interact with the city government, basically, we have in Joliet, we have 8 city council people and myself as mayor, so 9 people on the city council. The city of Joliet is broken up into 5 council districts, 3 at large, which are citywide. I think it's somewhat of an antiquated system. It's been this way since I think the 1950s in Joliet, but many of you are probably familiar. Back then, Joliet ended at about Midland Avenue. It was probably a quarter of the size it is now. When I first came to Joliet as a police officer in 1993, Joliet had about 75,000 people. Today it's over 150,000 people, so the city's doubled in size, but the government, the structure of government hasn't doubled at all. We also have in Joliet it's not a strong mayor form of government. There's a city manager who basically manages the day-to-day operations in the city. Technically, the mayor and all the council people are a part-time job. I can tell you being the mayor, it's not a part-time job. I probably put about 70 or 80 hours a week in. But again, I think there's some debate about why Joliet went to that form of government back in the 1950s or why it hasn't changed over the years. Personally, I think it gives, probably was done to give the political people some cover. If there's a bad decision that needs to be made or someone has to be the bad guy, you can kind of hide behind the city manager. Hey, it wasn't me, go talk to the city manager. But in reality, it doesn't, at least today, it doesn't really play out anymore. The council and the mayor tend to get blamed for everything. I joke about being the mayor, and people ask me how it is. And the running joke is I get credit for things I had nothing to do with, and I get blamed for things I had nothing to do with. And that seems to be probably a common refrain everywhere you go.
I don't have anywhere near the cover Bob has in terms of that because our form of government's a little bit different. Shanahan had about 3,700 people when I grew up there. When I graduated high school, actually, there were 3,700 people there. Now we have about 13,000, and I know Bob's got districts with aldermen, and we have at-large trustees. So we don't have those districts. You can live anywhere in Shanahan. You could have 4 people on the same street if that's how it happened to be. But we do have a village administrator, and he does do a lot of the day-to-day stuff, but decision-making is, I don't have the cover Bob has as far as that city manager making those kind of decisions. And he's right, he's absolutely right. We get the credit and we get the blame, and I have wonderful staff that takes very good care of me, and it is not a part-time job. I have a full-time job with the county as well, and people wonder why I'm still there, and when I tell them how much mayor pays, and I can't quit my job. So, as Bob said, we have those 4 main areas basically that we take care of, and I truly believe that in terms of types of government, we have the most direct and immediate effect on residents. And he and I were talking a little bit earlier, and I said I think that people forget that we live here as well. So everything that we decide, people like to point fingers and go, the mayor did this or the board did this. But we all live here. We don't make any decisions that don't equally affect us as well as the residents. So it's a little frustrating sometimes, but overall I think it's a noble endeavor, and I would say that I enjoy it a great deal.
Yeah, I do too. Regarding interacting with people, I think our city council, I think I can speak for all of them, are pretty proactive in fielding complaints and talking to people. I'll hear complaints every now and then, but for the most part, I think all of them are pretty reactive if something's brought to their attention. We have neighborhood meetings all over the city, and as I was driving down here tonight, I was trying to think of how many neighborhood groups there are, and it's hard to put a name on it. Jan Nahorsky's here. He's the lead of one of them, the Reedswood Group. Joliet, there's different parts of town, but a lot of the older parts of town, which aren't separated by a large area, have distinct neighborhoods. And as time has gone on, more and more of those neighborhoods have developed different groups. So there's probably a neighborhood meeting a night happening somewhere in Joliet, either on the east side, the near west side, or the far west side. I go to a number of them. I can't hit them all, but I do go to many of them. I think it's important for the mayor to go. When I go, generally I will find a district council person, 1 of the 5, at that meeting, and then some of the at-larges. Beyond that, there's numerous other committees and groups that go on. So I think the most direct way we interact with people, I interact with people, are at the neighborhood meetings. You can field questions. We like to have city staff go to the meetings. Jan, how many often do you have city staff at the meeting and not just an elected official who comes? Okay. Because a lot of the complaints that will come in, elected officials, we're kind of operating at a higher level. It's not a question we can answer. But if someone from neighborhood services is there, or someone from the street department, they can answer the question more directly or give a better answer than we can. The other thing that we try to have, and we really put an emphasis on this, is to have police officers present at these meetings. There was a captain who, that was part of his job, he would attend all the meetings. They will give annual or monthly crime updates on what's happened in the neighborhood, and then they can answer questions or take complaints. And I think for a lot of reasons in Joliet, I think that's very important. Again, it's not a secret, Joliet has a higher crime rate than Shanahan. So it's a concern in a lot of areas.
Your population's a bit larger.
A bit larger, right. But, in the tougher parts of town, it's a concern. In the older parts of town, a lot of seniors are concerned about their neighborhood. They think their neighborhood's changing. And then even far west in the brand new subdivisions, it's a concern. It's different. The complaints you'll get on the far west side are significantly different than what you'll hear on the east side. But the police presence there, I think, is really crucial. And I think it's important because it does try to knock down the barrier that exists between the police department and average people. A lot of people still don't think police are accessible, or maybe are shy away from trying to have a conversation with them or getting to know them. So it's played very well in Joliet, but that would be the immediate way I think that I interact with people almost on a daily basis.
And I agree completely with Bob. I think although we do have a lower crime rate than Joliet, that's a whole different animal. And no matter where you are and no matter how safe your town is, there's still drugs, there's still violence, there's still all of those things, maybe on a smaller scale, but we do have them as well. So it is important for me that our police officers, and not just our police officers, but our village board members and our administrator and all of our department heads, that they have other involvements in the community as well. Some of them serve on service organizations and they attend those homeowner association meetings. Sometimes you have neighborhood watch meetings. School resource officers, we want them to be visible, especially our police officers, for the same reasons, to be visible, to be accessible. Community policing has made an enormous difference in our village over the last probably 10 or 12 years. We encourage our police officers to get out of your squad cars and talk to people. You have to be accessible, and I do as well. I'm always accessible to people, and as Bob said, I obviously don't have the expertise that my director of public works has or my director of community development has, but I am happy to answer what I can and then direct you to the person who does have the specific answers that you're looking for.
Yeah, I'll go back to community police in a minute, but beyond those meetings, then there are committee meetings, committees of the council. Those are always published. There's the Open Meetings Act. It's an Illinois statute that we have to follow. If there's 3 or more council people present discussing city business, it has to be advertised beforehand and published, public notice so that people know that there's a meeting going on. Those meetings are recorded. Some are played on local television on Channel 6, but they are recorded and they are accessible on the City of Joliet website. So you can go on after the meeting. You'll see a Public Safety Committee and it won't be videotaped, it'll be recorded. You can hear the meeting, hear what happened. We also then have city council meetings. We had one Monday and Tuesday this week. It's on the first and third Monday and Tuesdays of the month. The first meeting, the pre-council, means more of the workshop. That's where a lot of the arguments or debate will happen over an issue. The second meeting is more formal. It's where the votes occur. The Monday meetings, when I came on the city council 6 years ago, happened at 3:30. The council voted about 4 years ago to move those back to 5:30, so there'd be more accessible. People who are working could get to the meeting if they want to speak on an issue. And then our regular city council meetings are at 6:30. At both meetings, at the Monday and Tuesday meeting, we open up public discussion before the meeting. If people want to speak about an item on the agenda, they're allowed to before we get to the agenda and begin to discuss it or vote it. They're allowed at 4 minutes by city statute to make a comment to the council. And then at the end of the meeting, it's open up. Anyone who wants to address the council on any issue is allowed to. And they're allowed to do that at both the Monday and Tuesday meeting. So I think it gives people a chance to have a voice, not just to talk to the council, but at the city council meetings, they are on local TV. They're being recorded. They're played live and they're being recorded. So if someone has an issue they want to bring up, they can address the council. They could do it in a formal setting, and their opinion or position is going to be broadcast on local TV and rebroadcast throughout the next 2 weeks.
And it's going to be documented as well. We're a little bit different. We're a little bit smaller. I have 6 trustees and myself, so there's only 7 of us. So we can't have more than 2 in the same place without violating the Open Meetings Act. So, and there is always, like Bob said, public comment time. And before we vote on anything, that's why I have the public comment at the beginning of the meeting. So if anybody has anything to say, they certainly will have the opportunity to say it before the board votes on it. So you wanted to talk about community policing, you said?
Yeah, I was just a little anecdotal story with community policing. When I came to Joliet in 1993, I was hired as a policeman. The community policing was a new concept, and it was funny because it was new on the Joliet Police Department, and all the old-timers hated it. They hated the whole idea. We're not social workers. It's not why we're here. So there was a lot of resistance in Joliet. The guys who went and did it were somewhat ostracized for doing it. But I think it's clear, in retrospect, that it really has paid dividends in Joliet. We've had, just in the last 2 or 3 years, I think we've had 3 officer shootings where they shot people in Joliet. Couple, I don't want to say they were questionable. There weren't charges filed, but they were certainly incidences that could have aroused suspicion. A subject being shot in the back, a white officer shooting an 18 or 17-year-old black boy in the back. And I think because of community policing and because of the years of relationships that were built up, not just by the people, but I think importantly by the leaders in the minority communities in Joliet, we haven't, knock on wood, we have not had the problems that you've seen in other parts of the country. My younger brother's a policeman in St. Louis, so I was just talking to him last night about what's going on in St. Louis. This has been going on for 2 years now, starting with Ferguson. So we're fortunate in Joliet. The city is about 50% minority, and we've had incidents that could have touched off that type of reaction. We haven't had it. And I really do attribute it to the community policing and the fact that the police officers were told, make inroads in these neighborhoods, learn to meet people, meet the community leaders. And I give a lot of credit to the police and to the community leaders that we haven't had people trying to politicize events unnecessarily or try to capitalize on it. And then a real quick aside, if you've noticed, I think everyone knows about the Schumacher Crosby case, the little girl who got killed in Preston Heights. There's been protests in downtown Joliet the last 2 weeks. It's a preacher I never heard of from the city of Chicago that's come out to Joliet to lead the protest. You don't see Joliet elected officials or Joliet clergy involved in this, at least not yet. So again, I'm going back to community policing, but I think it's important. Even though it wasn't popular when I was a young policeman on the department, I think it's really paid dividends, and I think there's a pretty fair relationship between the police and all communities in Joliet, which is important.
And I think there's a misconception because there's so much negative press out there that people think that everybody's against police officers. And by and large, especially in a small town, where getting out of your squad car and having those relationships with people, everybody knows everybody else to some extent. So by and large, our residents are very, very supportive of our police department. And we even had residents who brought, for the officers who had to work on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, provided dinners for them and brought those to the police station. So we do have the benefit of having that, and it saddens me when you watch the press and a lot of people get all of their information in 15-second sound bites off the news, and they believe everything that they see there. So you see things like Ferguson, and that is not the picture that we have here. So we are fortunate in that respect.
Yeah, and I do knock on wood, because I guess it could always change.
Yes, it could. But.
I think it's interesting, though, when you have, and I know the preacher has called me out. This is Samaje Crosby. I've heard he's challenged me. What are you doing about this, Mayor? Joliet Township is not part of Joliet. The Will County Sheriff's investigating this. So I'm curious to know where he's from in Chicago, because it must be a wonderful neighborhood. If he's got nothing to worry about, then come all the way out to Joliet. If I ever meet him, I'm going to ask him where his church is at. Yeah, he came out here because the TV cameras were out here,
right.
Which is unfortunate. Right. He's probably from Englewood or Roseland, right? So I guess that's a real quick overview of city government and how we work. If we could drill down, if there were questions or someone want to know something more specific, we'd be happy to answer them. Yes, ma'am.
Sure. Last month we heard about county level government, and tonight, thank you very much, municipal level government. In between, there is something called township government. Yes. I don't really understand what it is. I've been told that at one time in our history it was necessary. Communications were slower, but is it still necessary today? Yeah. Or could you maybe just give us an idea of its purpose?
Real quick.
Go ahead.
We were told to repeat the question. The question was about township government and what's its purpose in Illinois. Is it still necessary?
I think that there was a time when it was probably more necessary because there were so many rural areas and so much open space that was in unincorporated areas. There were big distances between municipalities, so the counties were split up into the townships, and they did a lot of road work. I have the great fortune, I have a very good working relationship with Schumacher Township. We do have some areas that are still unincorporated, so there are people that are Schumacher Township as opposed to Village of Schumacher, but the township has participated in our bike path program with giving us money of their the tax dollars that they collect to make bike paths throughout Schumacher, and we share equipment and things like that. So do they still have a purpose? Yes, but I think that has shrunk a lot because as towns spread, they take up more of that unincorporated area.
Yeah, in Joliet Township, I really can't speak for what their role is. Obviously, the city is 150,000 people in Joliet, and city government covers that, and Will County is the backstop for some of the any unincorporated area. I do know, I believe Illinois is the only state in the union that still has the township form of government. So I know that the Joliet Township has snow plows, and they will plow streets outside of the city. They run the animal control facility in Joliet. They're responsible for, and then I believe they're also involved in giving vouchers out to homeless people that are in Joliet.
Ours does a lot of senior services as well.
Yeah, so those are the functions that I know that they do. Beyond that, they probably could speak better than I could.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes?
Way in the back.
Curiosity, since Congress has made Illinois a sanctuary state, does that have any impact on local jurisdictions around there?
The question is about Illinois becoming a sanctuary state.
You're probably,
from
a legal standpoint, you're probably better.
I got a story about that. After President Trump's election, there was a growing movement in Joliet for Joliet to declare itself a sanctuary city. Joliet's about 30% Hispanic, and we know there's a large undocumented population in Joliet. I don't know how many, but we know there are a lot. So we ended up holding a town hall meeting on the east side at Mount Carmel Church, probably about 1,000 people there. There were activists from outside Joliet that was there. Telemundo was there, and a couple of the other Spanish stations were there. And the city council had it. I held the meeting with the police chief. What we told the people, and the meeting went well in Joliet. It was kind of an iffy night. I did not know how this was going to be received. But we said that nothing was going to change in the city. Our police department does not go out enforcing federal laws. If you don't pay your taxes, you got to deal with the IRS, not the Joliet Police Department. That's the way we've always approach any federal issue. It hasn't changed before or after the election. On the other hand, If INS comes to Joliet and says we're going to do a raid on Collins Street, our police are not going to stand down or not going to not cooperate with the authorities. We were going to follow the law. That's what we told people. I thought it was an unpopular message, but that community responded very well. I think they appreciated that we came to talk to them and that we met with them, and basically this is where we stand. So we haven't had those issues in Joliet. Now, since Governor Rauner passed that law, I'm an attorney now. I don't know how to enforce any of this. I don't understand how a state can opt out from federal law. I think that's what started the Civil War back in 1860 when states said they were going to do that. So I don't know, and I think quite frankly a lot of people are scratching their heads. I don't understand how the mayor of any city could say we're not going to follow the law here in Chicago or Seattle or Joliet. It's beyond me, and maybe the Attorney General is going to do something to these people. I don't know.
Well, just real fast. I'm 68, okay? I remember the age of 5 years of age, 4 years, 5 years of age, in black and white TV story in Illinois, showing a sanctuary city called Little Rock, Arkansas. The governor Moorman said, I don't want to have any police in the public school system. And President Eisenhower said, I think it was the 82nd Airborne Division.
Right.
Which in 1954, everybody in America knew what the 82nd Airborne Division was. Parents called it World War II or Korea, okay, at home.
Right.
And that's in the sanctuary cities. And I guess it comes down to, I guess you have to worry about getting state funds coming up if you don't belong to the state. I'm not just
No.
saying. And but it's federal law.
Well, and a lot of state funds are funneled from federal funds, so, the federal money comes down, so I guess if the state were to take that stand, they could risk federal money as well. And as for Shanahan, my Hispanic demographic is in single digits, so that really hasn't even been a question for us. It's just not an issue.
Yeah, it was an issue for us. And the whole thing is a little bit misleading because the governor could say it's a sanctuary state, but if the federal law enforcement is going to come in the state of Illinois, no one's going to stop them. Certainly, not the state police. So these are turbulent times we're in. I can't explain it, and I don't know how it's all going to shake out. I would think by declaring yourself a sanctuary state or a sanctuary city, you're actually bringing attention on yourself. But again, I guess different leaders have different views on that issue. Yeah. Am I getting red too? Yeah.
So I've been having some issues in Plainfield with code enforcement. And if someone wants to take exception or, get some reform, let's say, in the code enforcement area, how would they go about doing that?
The very first thing you would do is what I would recommend that you do, short of taking to Facebook, which seems to be everybody's favorite thing, please don't do that. Call the village hall in our case, talk to staff. If there is, we will tell you what the code is. If you want to address it with the board, then you would be put on a board agenda. And if the board, is agreeable to, it sees a reason to change that, it goes to our planning and zoning. There's a planning and zoning meeting once a month too. It would go to planning and zoning then, and they have a set criteria of things. If it puts an undue hardship on somebody, there are several criteria that have to be met for them to recommend it or not recommend it, and then that comes back to the board for a vote. So we've had a lot of talk about chickens recently. So we're in the midst of that process right now. So.
Yeah, I guess to add to that, we didn't mention it, Joliet is a home rule city, so we have the ability to pass our own laws. We do have a whole code of ordinances. So you have, I guess, federal law, state law, and then local Joliet municipal ordinances. I would imagine Shanahan does also.
We are home rule as well.
So we don't have a code enforcement officer in Joliet. I think we need one because, quite frankly, a lot that's is in the code that shouldn't is not allowed or outlawed is not necessarily enforced. But in Joliet, if that was an issue, you should call your council person or call neighborhood services, and they will get out. They will address the problem, and ultimately they could issue fines to whoever the individual is that's not following the code. Whether it be somebody not cutting their grass in the summertime and those types of things. So we do have a neighborhood services division in City Hall that handles that. Is that me?
local legislation, your local government. What do? I want to do something, and you're somebody in your area says you can't do that. How do you deal with people having issues? Who do they go to?
So are you talking about if somebody has an issue with a council member or with me personally? or an ordinance?
Whatever. I've got a problem with the way the village is being run. How do you interface with them? Is there an individual people call if they're having a problem?
Well, I think there's a few things. I mean, you're seeing it right here with North Point, right? There's people in this area are not in favor of this, or some people aren't. So they're active. They've organized themselves. I think they're attending city council meetings and they're speaking out. I don't know what's being done beyond that, but we've had where people pass petitions and they'll present a petition to the city council on something. I think ultimately, if the council doesn't agree with you, or if you disagree with the position the council's taken, the ultimate remedy is to run for office yourself. But certainly, I guess in Joliet, you need 5 votes to get something passed. So if you were advocating a specific position, like allow chickens in residential areas, you would reach out to individual council people and try to get the support of at least 5 people in the city council who will agree with you, introduce the legislation, and then see it through and pass it. Vote for it.
I think the first thing that you need to do is attend some board meetings. If you're not, I tell people this all the time. We have, and Joliet's significantly bigger than we are. I literally have 2 senior citizen women who show up regularly. Then, upon occasion, there are others when they have an issue of their own, but I say that it is very difficult for us to operate in a vacuum. So if we don't have any input from people, if nobody comes, if nobody calls, if nobody eats, my cell phone number, my personal cell phone number is on my business card, so don't call me. But, it is my intention to be accessible to people. That's why we're there. We work for those people. And, but you have to be there. You have to get involved. You have to do something besides post it on Facebook and complain about it. So those are the probably most immediate things. And of course you can run for office, but getting involved and saying what you want to say and showing up and getting the accurate information is crucially important.
Do phone calls matter?
Yes. For me, for sure.
Yeah, I return calls too. I think people are surprised sometimes that I call them back, but I do return phone calls.
You really?
Yeah, quite frankly, a lot of what gets reported in the media, it gets frustrating when you read some of the newspaper and it's half true or not even half. So I enjoy being able to explain my position or why I said what I did or took a vote that I did. It seems like people, again, I use the example of the sanctuary city, to be able to interact with people and deliver a message that they didn't want to hear, but I think they generally appreciated that we stood up and they answered their questions and said, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're not going to do. So I enjoy being able to interact with people. I find it easier than having it being done through newspaper reports.
And in terms of development and things like that as well, if we're making a decision, I'm happy to tell you why we made the decision that we made. Here's the information that we got, right. And here's what we're dealing with. Here's the pros, here's the cons, here's why we made this decision. I get that you're only seeing a small part of it. Please call me and I'm happy to tell you the bigger picture.
I agree.
How do you handle homeless people?
Homeless people?
Yeah, what's your procedure?
Well, we're somewhat tied by it's not illegal to be homeless. It's not illegal to panhandle. We have panhandlers all over our city. It's not a good way, when someone's getting off I-80, that's the first thing they see is people on the corner. But what we found in Joliet, because of Catholic Charities, because of some of the shelters and soup kitchens, I think it's a very generous community. I also think it's become a magnet for homeless people. The police will tell you they deal with people not necessarily from the Joliet or Chicago area. There's people from all over the country that somehow find their way to Joliet. So it is an ongoing issue. I think it's important to care for people, but I don't think it should be tolerated where homeless people are going to choke off business in a downtown area or harass people coming and going from the courthouse or train station. So our police are pretty proactive with it, but again, it's a little bit of a slippery slope. There's only so much you can do. when you're dealing with that element.
And for us as well, we have probably fewer homeless people. Am I still not on? I'm sure we have fewer homeless people, but we do have a list of resources, including Catholic Charities in all of our local churches, and so through the generosity of some charities and things like that, there have been occasions where we get a hotel room for somebody for the short term until something can be done for them long term.
Okay.
Mayor, Mr. Schumacher, Mayor O'DeKirk, thank you for taking time out to be with us here tonight. Thank you. Mayor O'DeKirk, can a full-time city of Joliet employee concealed carry with a proper concealed carry permit during work hours?
I don't think we have any policy on that, one way or the other.
Okay.
I don't think it's ever been addressed. Our code of ordinances, I talked about city government and the way it's stretched out. The code of ordinances really hasn't been updated many times since the 1950s or 1960s. So we're going through and we're throwing a lot of the old antiquated ones out that don't apply anymore, and we're changing that. I don't think we have anything on concealed carry. Offhand, I don't think there's anything prohibiting it.
In line with Dave's question before, personalize a little bit. I've got a small farm, new line, zoned agriculture, lots of additional land, and I talked to the village planner, I want to get it zoned agriculture. He told me, no, you won't do it, I'll vote against you, I'll recommend the board vote against you. So what do I do now? Hire a lawyer?
You gotta hire a lawyer, or you can reach out to the board members. If you know that the planning director is going to vote against you, that vote isn't binding. So if you can make your case to people on the board, then that would be the way to do it. Those are the votes that are going to count.
How big? Okay, and this is just a question for you. How big of a piece of property is it? Because there are. Okay, well then yes, then I would agree with Bob and approach the council people yourself.
But she said she would recommend they vote against it.
She can, and again, like Bob said, we have a planning and zoning commission. There are 7 people on it. It is a non-binding decision, so we do count on them to some extent, but there is always the possibility that we could go against their recommendation.
We had an issue 2 weeks ago where our it wasn't zoning, but there was a commission that recommended, it had to do with string lighting and LED lighting in Joliet. There was a recommendation to ban it, and the city council did not follow the recommendation. They voted 6-2 not to do that. So it not only is it possible, it happens somewhat frequently that the council will go against what staff is recommending.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir.
I was raised in Joliet, and I live in unincorporated Will County now, actually in Shanahan Township.
Oh.
And it's becoming one of the most dangerous areas that I've ever lived in so many years. And that's primarily because of the decisions that come out of Joliet and Shanahan relative to these distribution centers, truck terminals that are put up, and the roads are unworthy, they're not ready. And you go up Route 6, you go up Bluff Road, it's a nightmare. And we've had neighbors who teach school in Shorewood or Naperville, they quit. They call it running the gauntlet, driving through Shanahan. And the frustration and the unsafe conditions that are down in rural Will County, based on some of the decisions in Joliet and in Shanahan, are really terrible, because you said that you're the first line defense for the common person living in a house. But the ladies last month were very gracious in taking our questions, but mostly what we heard is, no, that road's a township road. We don't have anything to do with it. No, that road's a state road. We don't have anything to do with it. No, that road's a city road. And you guys know that when this tax incremental financing expires some years from now, those guys are going to be gone, and we're going to be stuck with those sarcophaguses of concrete. My point is, it is dangerous. We have the railroad trains blocking rural roads now, where emergency medical services can't come in because they've been working on a bridge for 8 months. That should have been done many months ago. It is truly frustrating to feel the results of some of the decisions made in your cities. Now, granted, is there any hope, I guess is what I'm saying. Is any consideration being done for dumping all these broken down trucks, none of which are licensed in Illinois, if you would look? I've had 5 of them come 5 on Route 53. You can't drive in the right-hand lane because the road is pulverized from the overweight trucks. Tennessee village fathers know what's going on.
I'm actually happy to have the opportunity to specifically address this because it is Shanahan, and what I said before about we are all residents and what we do affects us as well. If you're talking specifically about the I-55 and Bluff Road, and if you notice the construction up there, that is a county road on a state highway, and with no money from the state. Yep, that's all right. No, I'm not putting this off. I'm telling you that we as a municipality, with the help of all of the taxing bodies, local taxing bodies, and no state money, are improving the turn radius and the width of that overpass and interchange so that it will accommodate trucks more. And that Venture One project that is going on there, that is not in a TIF district. They are not getting a tax incremental funding with an IGA with all of the taxing bodies, including the county, all 11 taxing bodies that were affected. They are putting in an enormous amount of infrastructure, including a stoplight at the newly rerouted frontage road that is being rerouted on the east side of that state project, like $23 million state project at 55 and Route 6. That state project did not include a stoplight. That was my deal breaker. And I said, no light, no project. So they are bringing water across. Joliet serves our sewer on that side of 55. But there are vast infrastructure improvements being done. The company that's building the warehouse that is going up over there now, they are fronting all of that money. And the IGA, with all of the taxing bodies, pays them back for the initial investments, stuff that we can't afford to do, and we could never do with, those are state roads. I can't stop trucks from driving on them. Whether they're licensed in Illinois or not, I don't have the ability to put up no truck signs. That's just not within my authority. Would I love to have no trucks? Absolutely. But that's not, everybody still wants Amazon to bring stuff to their front door. So we are doing what we can with the infrastructure and bringing the water over there and improving the roads and improving the intersection with a stoplight, and they are paying for all of that. And for that initial investment, they are getting paid back, but they are not getting a tax break. They are paying all of their real estate taxes, and some of it will go back to them to repay them for that initial investment that they've made. And as soon as that money is paid off, that investment is paid off, it will be strictly profit.
Yeah, and you touched on a lot of points. As far as, essentially you're talking about Center Point in Joliet and in Elwood. The decision to bring that in was made about 20 years ago. I could tell you that there is constant friction between the trade unions and new developments at Center Point. They do not build, usually don't build 100% union. So it's not necessarily the case that it's just for union construction jobs. Regarding the traffic, I agree with you. The local roads were not built to handle the truck traffic that's in Will County and continues to come into Will County. I've been to Washington several times. Matter of fact, I'm supposed to go in 2 weeks. We are pleading with the officials, our elected officials in Washington, in a good way. We're saying, look what's happening in southern Joliet and Will County. This is the economic bright spot of the state of Illinois. There is new development here. There are new jobs coming here, more so than anywhere else in the state. However, our infrastructure needs help. We can't keep up. At this point, we're not asking for another lane on I-80. We're probably asking for 2 or 3 on I-80 to keep up with what's coming in. The Hobart Road Bridge, which you probably heard about, is going to happen. They're expecting to break ground early next year. The idea of the bridge, it's not going to solve the truck problem, but working in conjunction with the state and the county, the idea is to try to funnel as many trucks as possible in and out of Center Point on the bridge. It's going to start at Hobart Road, go Hobart Road south to Route 6, and then from Route 6 over the river directly into Center Point. It's a public-private partnership. $21 million is coming from the state of Illinois to redo the Hobart Road interchange, make it a diverging diamond, much like what is on Route 59 and I-88, if you're familiar with the area. The rest of it's private money. It's $160 or $180 million of private money that's going to be used to build that bridge. Governor Rauner is touting as it's a success story. This is how he wants business to be done in Illinois moving forward, not just municipal funds or local or state government paying for these type of improvements, but having private business come in and get involved. Personally, and I can't predict the future, but when you talk about everyone getting up and leaving, they're going to have $160 million invested in that bridge. I don't think they're leaving until they get their money back by collecting the tolls. When that happens, when the bridge is built, you're going to see, we can't control, as she said, truck traffic on Route 53. It's a state route. You cannot put weight limits on it. No local municipality can do it. So it's not just a problem for you. We have trucks blowing through downtown Joliet all day long. They're taking 53 out from I-55 through Romeoville, through Crest Hill. There's nothing we can do to stop those trucks. We could do it on local roads, and we do it. And you're going to see a lot more of that, I believe, when the bridge is built. Trucks that get caught. We don't plan on issuing overweight permits anymore. You're not going to be able to drive on Joliet roads. You're going to have to use a bridge. So it's not a solution, but I think it's an answer, or it's one step towards a solution. Bottom line is, though, this is the largest intermodal port in all of North America. Center Point's about 60% built out, so there's more coming. You may have North Point coming, which will double the footprint, and there's no question the local infrastructure can't keep up.
And to piggyback on what Bob just said, when Bob asked me if I would publicly support the Humboldt Road Bridge project, my answer was, as long as you will support widening Route 6 to 4 lanes between that bridge and we're in our new interchange that will make Route 6 4 lanes over to East Manor Lane. I'm sure you know where that doesn't make sense to everybody, but I'm sure you know where Manor Lane is. The overpass construction will make it 4 lanes to there. And I know that there's a Will County Freight Advisory Committee that we both sit on, and that is one of its priority projects is to get that to be 4 lanes, because my concern was that between our new construction and that bridge project, if we have that small section, it's 3 or 4 miles at best of Route 6, it's only 2 lanes, it would be a natural bottleneck. Not only is it not built for trucks, but it's going to create a huge, and that's my way to work and back every day too. So we certainly do think about those things, and we are well aware that the infrastructure is not, up to what it should be or what it needs to be to support the truck traffic, but we are definitely working on it.
I do think one other solution long-term to this would be the Ileana Expressway. Now, that's obviously nowhere near Joliet, so we really don't have any say in this. But I think the idea with the Ileana would be it would get much of that freight traffic off of I-80, run it through the potential airport in Peatone, which is going to be largely a freight airport, and directly to I-65. So that would pull a lot of that traffic to the south if that comes in. Of course, that's off the table right now. And with the state of Illinois' finances, I'm not sure. You're certainly going to need a lot of federal money to get that done. But I do think that that's what the planners, the Will County planners, not necessarily Joliet or Shanahan, that was their intent with the Ileana, to pull all that freight traffic to the south.
Well, we have the fortune, or I guess maybe the misfortune, of being at the crossroads of 55 and 80. We are, the target of the Midwest for both of us.
Right.
That's where we meet.
Well, you have the 2 expressways. You have the river. There's 3 rail spurs, which you're just not going to get, and you just don't. They're not being built anymore. So it is a prime location for these businesses. Regarding the jobs, there's no question that when the jobs first came in, there were a lot of horror stories coming out of there. They're non-union, low-paying, part-time jobs. People would work there for 8 weeks and then get laid off, so they didn't have to get benefits paid to them. The city has been very active, and I say like the last 5 years or so, of demanding a higher quality job. When Amazon came in, Amazon is somewhere between $14, $15, $16 an hour. They're starting. They offer health insurance. They offer matching 401k contributions. They're offering school incentives to people. So I'm not sure it's a job that you could buy a house with, but it is a decent job for a young person entering the job market. And the city of Joliet continues to have an unemployment rate higher than the state average, which is perplexing with all the new jobs coming in. But so I think, yeah, you can figure that one out. But I think some of the issues, a lot of the issues that you touched on, they haven't been solved, but they are being addressed at the local level.
Just one last comment.
Yes, sir.
The quality of life of the residents is suffering.
Right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We agree.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Take the floor.